Hey everyone. Okay, so this chapter pretty much made me eat my words, as apparently the devil fruit kept secret by the Elbaf royal family wasn't the gum gum fruit, but supposedly something else entirely. Something that turned Loki into whatever the fuck he turned into. I don't know. Is largely like consumed by shadow. And I don't know if it's intentional or not on Oda's part, but it does kind of give me like a lot of what the fruit's power is and what the kind of, I guess, form it gave Loki, it really does have similar vibes to that of Emu, which in itself makes me wonder even more about the Giants' history during the Void Century, because this chapter definitely gave credence to an actual fear and animosity that the government has towards Giants now, beyond just brute strength or seeing them solely as soldiers for the God Knights or Navy. Like, because much like the initial D being tied to the original royal family of the world, I think the government fears the Giants for what this power represents, which frankly has me leaning towards the idea that this is a power that is somehow linked to the government's demonic abilities as well, that this is definitely a power the ancient giants dabbled in, and I think that is in part the reason why Loki was able to wield this power, because unlike others who've tried, because he is of ancient giant blood. In whereas if the demonic abilities of the government, whereas the demonic abilities the government possesses are tied to the, well, those abilities might be tied to the ancient giants as well in some kind of Lovecraftian thing that the ancient giants partake in. I think it's possible magic that humans that only humans that humans could feasibly wield, but not the same kind of power we're seeing here either. Um, Granted, that last bit about the government is definitely more so wild speculation on my part, but it's hard not to tie the two together after this chapter, or especially after what this chapter is showing us. Um, Speaking of the government, though, this chapter ties with a bit of a loose end that, frankly, a lot of us, I think, already suspected, but Gabon reveals to Shanks that the government did make several attempts to take Shanks back, and were aware he was on Roger's crew. So, again, mostly a bit of dialogue that fills in a small gap, so to speak, but I do like the back and forth between Gabon and Shanks in itself in this chapter, showing how much of a lot of what Shanks had done was truly a ruse, and his true loyalties basically lies with the bonds he forged with the Roger Pirates. Now, in saying that, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of his time at Marie-Joie, because I feel like that's where a lot of the juicy bits are in terms of discovering Shanks' motives and his kind of turn towards jumping into the race for the One Piece. Like, I do believe a lot of, like, I definitely believe a lot of Shanks' motives for wanting to become like Pirate King in the present day are kind of tied to the time he did spend at Marie-Joie and just what he discovered there. But like always, Oda's kind of a little stingy with the details and says, I'll get to that later when we get to it, kind of thing. Like, again, it's that whole thing of time and place for everything, and I do understand it in a lot of respects, but also there's sometimes where I'm like, Oda, can you just tell us what the fuck's up with this character or this character? Sometimes, like, the secrecy sometimes is a little annoying. Um, in saying that all that, I can't lie, the further along we go in this part of the flashback, the flimsier the accusations of Loki murdering Harald become, because right now it's definitely all but confirmed at this point that everything surrounding the accusations was based solely on heresy, just for the fact that, well, when you look at the battlefield during this whole thing, there was no one alive or even awake to see, well, to see what happened, or see what happened. Now, granted, this does also add fuel to the theory I've had for a while that Loki conspired with Jarl to take the fall for murdering Harald, when really the circumstances paint it more as assisted suicide or something to that effect. Like Loki, just like Harald, loved his father so much that he refused to have Harald be painted as the monster he was, and and just turned him what his father turned into that day. And honestly, if this was Loki's thinking, then I gotta give him credit for that, for just taking the fall for Harald. But I also do gotta call him out a little bit here, because while I'm taking the while taking the him taking the fall for Harald does speak to his moral character, and that contrary to his thought of him being unworthy of continuing Harald's legacy, his willingness to take the blame does prove the opposite. I do also gotta say, I think Loki's biggest failing as a character, and especially as in the way he saw himself, was his inability to trust the people, the citizens of Elbaf. And yes, I know Loki already had a very poor reputation with the people, but in a lot of ways, this would have been the perfect opportunity to open up, have a genuine dialogue with the citizens, to treat them like reasonable thinking adults. But instead, he kind of chose the easy, in a way. Like, I'm not saying the choice wasn't easy for him, but Loki did kind of choose the easy way out. He chose the path that not only escaped responsibility, but didn't have the faith in the people either. And because of that, we're now in the situation where Elbaf is going to end up learning the very hard way what happened that night that Harald died. Like, it's one of those things where I understand Loki's mentality of why he probably took the fall for what happened to Harald, and why he chose not to reveal the truth. But simultaneously, it's like Loki did kind of cause, I guess true to his name being true to his name of that taken after the god of mischief, he did cause a lot more problems for Elbaf, but by not saying anything than choosing to take the fall for Harald in a way. And yeah, outside of that, it is kind of funny to learn that Rognir once again is another case of an object eating a devil fruit, which begs the question, is every object that ate a devil fruit just a leftover experiment from Vegapunk, or did objects somehow accidentally eat the fruit, like Chopper with the human fruit? Like, I assume it's the former, because it was stated Vegapunk was the one with the sole knowledge on how to do that. So it would make sense that he did this, and they just kind of, and because from merging with animals and whatnot, they just kind of wandered off and scattered across the world in one way or another. And it's kind of funnier when considered in that sense of like, oh yeah, oh yeah, they turned into animals. They probably just walked off and just found their own place in the world, kind of thing. It's kind of funny imagining in my head like Rognir like Elbaf adopting Rognir as the protector of Elbaf's greatest treasure, and possibly knowing that it's like some kind of like a squirrel or something like that. Like, yeah, it's kind of funny when you think about the implications here. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe from Blue Sky. And on Crunchyroll, be sure to push the subscribe button and just share the around, guys. Dog Nut signing off. Later, everyone.